It has recently come to our ears, not without great pain to us, that in some parts of Upper Germany, as well as in the provinces, cities, territories, regions and of both sexes of their own salvation and forsaking the Catholic faith, give themselves over to devils, male and female, and by their incantations, charms and conjurings, and by other abominable superstitions and sortileges, ruin and cause to perish the offspring of animals, they afflict prod and torture with dire pains and anguish, both internal and external. These men, women, cattle, herds, and animals, and hinder men from begetting and women from conceiving, and prevent all consummation of marriage. They deny with sacrilegious lips the faith they received in holy baptism, at the instigation of the enemy of man, to commit and perpetrate.
Clickety-click.
And we're clickety-clack, the bitches are back. Good morning.
With our cute little witchy boots.
Oh, I would like cute witchy boots.
So do I. Then we can clickety-clack our heels.
I'm now also feeling bad because I'm remembering the time that my friend Megan and I were drunk in a nightclub in Dublin, and I was carrying around her shoes, which were little witchy shoes, because they had heels on them. And I was carrying them around in my giant bag, and I took them out and put them on the back of a toilet because I needed to get like a tampon out or something. And I forgot one of them.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I feel so bad. I've never forgotten that, Megan.
That's almost worse than forgetting both of them, because it's like you managed to grab one.
Yeah.
What were you doing?
I was very drunk and probably 21.
I also want to state that I'm suffering with asthma symptoms, so if Niamh doesn't get to edit out all my wheezing, that's what's happening.
The one thing I wish, I'm sure it does exist, that Audacity would do is that you could like put on a filter that cuts off all of our coughing, yawning, sneezing, and that weird
clearing
little laugh
throats.
I do through my nostrils, because I absolutely hate that, and I cut that out all of the time.
Oh no, I never even noticed that you do a laugh through your nostrils.
I wasn't aware I did it until I was editing my own voice, and now I'm very aware of it.
What do I do aside from nervous laughter? Actually, maybe don't tell me, because I don't know if I want to know.
The only thing I noticed the last episode is I had to cut out a lot of your yawns, and I was like, is the baby keeping her awake? You had a lot of yawns while I was talking, and I was like, oh.
Oh no, and you could hear them?
Yeah.
Oh my god. I'll try to... Now that we're talking about it, I feel like I'm going to yawn.
No.
I'm not going to do it.
To be fair, I was droning on a lot.
I mean, that was a day. And we're about to do it again. So
yeah.
Good luck to us.
Good luck to us.
I should probably grab a Coke.
Before we get into it, a quick shout out to Valerie, Lilacs and Poppies, and Tony Biodomer on Instagram. If you listen to the Pinecones episode, you know why. Welcome to episode 32 of the Rowan and Pine podcast. And we're back with another witchy installment. It's technically our 4th witchy episode of our witchcraft miniseries. So we had Greco-Roman, Celtic, Norse, and now today we are right into the nitty-gritty. We're going into the witch trials. Hell yeah, bitches. I hope you guys have been enjoying our series so far. We have, so screw you if you haven't. This is about us, okay?
Yeah, you can turn it off.
But also, if you don't like it, you can get in touch. You know, there's no point in just not saying anything.
Also that, but as we've stated before, just it's a nice approach.
Gently and nicely.
That's appreciated.
Respectfully.
Hey, guys.
Could you cool it on the witchy stuff?
I hate witches. And then we reply, that's too
you're
bad.
Getting 15 more installments.
Yeah, the next year is going to be all witch
now
episodes.
we're just renaming it to like Rowan and Witches.
Why not Witches and Pine?
What are broomsticks made out of? Whatever that is. We'll change the wood to that.
We could just have the podcast be Witches and Witches.
Okay.
I was going to say warlocks, but
I would also listen to a podcast called Witches and Witches. I'd be like, yeah, this sounds like exactly what I am interested in.
Time for us to have a rebranding meeting. Anywho, do you want to tell us what we're doing today?
So today, it's been sort of leading up to this. We wanted to give like good background and lesser known information about witches and witchcraft, but we all know that the one thing that everybody knows about witches is that a whole bunch of them were killed in the 1600s. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But first, we're going to have a little poke around Europe, pre-witch trials. Emily looks disgusted that I used that word poke around Europe, but that's what we're going to do. I'm going to be saying the word phallus. I'm literally looking at my sources, and one of them has the flying phallus and the laughing inquisitor. That's one of them. So we're going to look around Europe and see how people with magical tendencies were treated prior to the witch trials, and then we'll get into the witch trials and all of the punishments and the absolutely really annoying things that they did to women that me and Emily are probably going to get very offended over, and have little rants. But I mean, that's why you love us. That's what you're here for.
Yeah, you're definitely here for the rants. Not all the other information, but maybe you are.
We don't know your life. We don't judge you, and you don't judge us. So a couple of episodes back, we were talking about the cunning folk and wise women, people who were folk healers, who were basically that sort of weird person in your community that you went to when your cow was behaving weird, or when your kid had some rash that you didn't know what it was. But that wasn't just confined to the Celtic nations. Just about every nation in medieval and early modern Europe had cunning folk, so those who had magical gifts which allowed them to help find lost things, to protect crops and livestock, to divine the future, to heal injuries and illnesses, and even fight off evildoers or fairy attacks. Counter fairy attacks. In England and Ireland, they were known as the cunning folk. In Germany, they're the Krauterhexen, or the herb witches. Krauterhexen.
I like how that sounds.
Krauterhexen. Wouldn't that be such an amazing all-girl punk band name?
Yeah, or like a metal band.
Of all women, because I'm just
Yes.
picturing women here
With like screechy voices.
Yes,
But good screechy, not bad screechy.
yeah, good
Sorry,
screechy,
keep
the kind
going.
of screechy that you want to listen to, not shrill. Okay.
Yeah.
In France, they were the Divin Guérisseurs. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly, or the divine healers. In Italy, they were the Benandanti, or the good walkers. I like that. Good walkers. In Norway and Denmark, the Kloge folk, or the wise folk. In Russia, the Vedmak, which means knower. Spain, Portugal, and Latin America, the Curanderos, also the healers. And in the Netherlands, they were the Tover Doctor, or the magic doctor. So it was so widespread, they had names for them in all of these. So just a big distinction that we sort of touched on in our Celtic episode. Because folk magic was such an integral part of the community, you had to really distinguish between that sort of folk magic and what would later become like witch magic, or the magic that would get you killed, basically. So the
Witch magic.
witchcraft. The biggest...
No, like which one is that?
Oh.
Witch magic.
I did not get that at all.
It's witch magic. Witch magic.
That could have just kept going. Witch magic. Witch magic. Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was making a joke about. You killed it.
I'm
Just
sorry.
kidding.
I'm sorry. Consorting with the devil was an integral part of the official theory of witchcraft, in contrast to those peasant beliefs. Magic was the content of sorcery, whereas prophecy and divination of thieves and lost objects, as well as magical protection and healing, were precisely the functions of the wise women. There is a German sociologist called Max Weber who argued that at the beginning of the 20th century, a central facet of modern Western culture was its disenchantment, which was like the removal of magic. He said that this occurred during the Protestant Reformation, which we all know, capital T, capital C, the church, comes in to ruin the party. And this was a big...
Again.
This was a big break from the Catholic superstition, which sort of, to a certain point, coexisted. The Catholic Church itself in the 13th century posited that belief in witchcraft was an illusion. In no sense were witches considered by ecclesiastical or secular authorities to be an actual serious problem until the 15th century. So they just didn't believe the witches existed. So there was no point in like protecting against them.
Oh.
It was the Protestants that brought this in. What am I always saying about the
Wow.
Protestants?
Nobody likes them.
Nobody likes the Protestants keeping their toasters in the press. Okay. Interestingly, while like this brand of magic was widespread, each social class had their own particular area that they focused on. So the sophisticated elite liked alchemy and astrology. It was practiced throughout the Middle Ages.
I feel like the elite still today are into astrology.
Yeah. That's why I'm trying so hard to believe in it, because I want to be elite too. Also, I love all the artwork and all of that. I would just love to be an astrology girly. I'd love to get like tattoos and stuff. I suppose I still could,
Yeah.
but I'm just like, yeah, but like not every Capricorn can be having the same day as me.
You and me get matching Capricorn tattoos.
Yeah. Yeah. I was telling Emily this. I went to like I don't know if I told you this part. I went to a tarot card reading when I was in Edinburgh, and I sat down, and she was just asking me. She was like, "Oh, like, what's your first name?" And like, I told her, I was like, "Oh, my name is Niamh," and she was like, "Oh, and you're a Capricorn." And she sort of looked at me as if, "You don't believe in this." I could just get this vibe off her. I was like, "She knows. She knows." To be fair, I was wearing a Capricorn necklace, but so
Oh,
yeah.
So she might have seen that.
Yeah, like ironically, I took off because like I can't help myself. I took off my wedding ring because I didn't want her to. I didn't want to give her any clues as to who I was. I wanted to really test her.
Yeah.
But I forgot to take off my Capricorn necklace, and I'm like, damn it. She knows even more about me. But she was very sweet.
You should have said like, "No, I'm a Sagittarius."
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, no, I just like the look of this word.
And then she goes, "Why are you wearing a Capricorn necklace?" And then you're like, "Gotcha."
So the middle class people who could read, those were the magicians, and they actually used the spell books. They had handbooks of formulas and incantations. Of course, as literacy expanded, the use of these books expanded. And then the common people also believed in magic, but that was more in, like Emily was telling us in our Greco-Roman episode, love charms, protection against sickness, or anything that would be more harmful, causing illness or death. These are the people that believed that you could go and hire yourself a witch to help you. Or maybe you were getting attacked by fairies, or your kid was stolen by a changeling. These are the people who believed that. It wasn't until 1563 in Britain that witchcraft was made a capital offence. But before that, it was deemed heresy and was denounced by the Pope Innocent VIII in 1484 with a very famous papal bull. I remember I was talking about papal bulls at school, and we were like, a bull? And they were like, it was like the name for like a notice that they would publish on behalf of the Pope. It was just called a papal bull.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You brought it up the other day, and I thought it was a person.
Oh, no.
I was like, I Googled, who is?
Who is papal bull?
Who's papal bull?
The papal bull of Pope Innocent. You would have heard the first part of it right before our intro music, hopefully, if I remember to edit it in there. But just as an excerpt from it, that basically was the throwing down the gauntlet, just saying that like we're doing something about these witches. It goes as follows. We therefore, desiring, as is our duty, to remove all impediments by which in any way the said inquisitors are hindered in the exercise of their office, and to prevent the taint of heretical pravity and of other like evils from spreading their infection to the ruin of others who are innocent, the zeal of religion especially impelling us, in order that the places in the said parts of Upper Germany may not be deprived of the office of Inquisition, which is their due, do hereby decree, by virtue of our apostolic authority, that it shall be permitted to the said inquisitors in these regions to exercise their office of Inquisition and to proceed to the correction, imprisonment, and punishment of the aforesaid persons for their said offences and crimes. So that's just authorising a whole bunch of people to be like, you have God on your side, go get these witches.
Yikes.
Also, like, use a full stop. There's like 15 commas in that sentence. My God. Did you not think forward that, like, what is that, 500 years later, somebody's going to be reading it out on a podcast? My God.
Yeah.
Talk about
They
lack
have no
of foresight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn you, Pope Innocent. Or should we
Fools.
say guilty? Guilty of killing everybody. Just a few years later, the publication of a manual known as Malleus Maleficarum, or Hammer of the Witches, was written
Boo.
in 1487 by 2 German inquisitors under the Pope's authorization. And that really kicked things off. Boo to the Malleus Maleficarum, one of the most destructive documents in history. It's estimated, like, totally after the witch trials that, like, 2 million people were executed.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. I didn't realize the number was that large.
Yeah. Well, like, that's an estimation because, as we'll get into it a little bit later, a lot of the records were missing, or there were literally the volume of executions that were going on. They just weren't taking enough note of them.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. And it was mostly against women.
Yeah. Mostly.
Because there weren't many men who practiced witchcraft.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like a book that was like, kill the women.
Mm-hmm. And even if you take witchcraft out of the equation, it's just women were easier targets, you know, for accusations. Like whether they dabbled in any sort of folk healing or not, you know?
Right. Like how I said in my previous episode with the ancient Greek and Romans, it was like they practiced magic because they had no, I don't know if it was like a court of law. I don't know if they had like the court system, but same like sort of sentiment. It's like they didn't have the law behind them. They didn't have anybody who would stand up for them. So they were kind of like, well, I guess we'll practice magic then.
Yeah. It's like you and I were discussing, this is way before the podcast. I believe it was with our mutual friend, Megan. And I remember she was saying that it's been observed that teenage girls usually go through some sort of witchcraft stage, like teenage girls now in modern times, because it's very much a form of power that is in no way derived from men. And it's a way to tap into her femininity and feel powerful and feel like she has some control over it. And I mean, that could be astrology. It could be, you know, like herb spells. It could be crystals. It could be just manifesting, tarot reading.
Right, because it'll make you feel powerful when you feel like you have no power in your life, especially when you're a teenager. Yeah. You're so mad at everyone. You feel like it's when you start to kind of feel like an adult, but you're not really, because somebody's still telling you you have to go to bed, you have to go to school. Yeah. And you're at a stage, in your life where there's so much changing around you. But if you feel like you're able to... And inside of you. And you feel like you're able to have some sort of control or make sense of it in a certain way. Like if, say, for example, with tarot reading, like if you like did like a 3-card spread and you were just like, like this makes sense. I have seen there are people who, and this would probably be my take of it, there are people who use tarot reading as a form of self-reflection and meditation. Like it's not so much that they believe that the cards are telling them something or anything like that. And like, obviously that's amazing if there are people who believe that. More power to you. But if you like do a spread of cards and there are things that are jumping out at you and you're thinking, right, that's about this area of my life. And that's something it's triggering a thought in your brain. Like, I think that's a way for you to self-reflect and think about, like... Yeah, you're able to assign your own meaning to it. It's probably a way to figure out what you want as well. Well, this card can mean this, and if that's what I'm hoping for it, like, how do I feel about that? Yeah, like I would like that, and that's how you know what you want. Right. You know? Right. So, going back to the sort of like being a teenage girl, did you have there was sort of like the weird time where, at least for me and like some other of my friends, it was before you got your period, but I think the hormones kind of start working around inside of you and you just cry and feel awful for no reason. Yeah. Yeah. I remember a time like that, and you feel like everybody hates you. Like you can do nothing right. I remember just all of a sudden just getting so upset and crying. It's like, why are you crying? I don't know. Yeah. Stuff that would have never made you cry. Like hell, that happens to me once a month still. Yeah, but at that point, there was nothing... Yeah, there was nothing actually, to show for it. You weren't PMSing yet because you just didn't get your period yet. So it really was like, why are you upset?
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
And nothing came after it.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Oh, so much sympathy for children and their hormones that start. Oh, God.
And parents of kids at that age too. Because I'm sure it's not easy for them either.
Right. Well, I'll be there soon. Hopefully not too soon. But...
Somebody who should have had period cramps his whole life, Heinrich Kramer.
Tell us why.
He was born in Schlettstadt around 1430 and entered the Dominican order there. He was named Inquisitor for southern Germany in 1474 and was involved with witch trials within 2 years of becoming Inquisitor. His co-writer of the Malleus Maleficarum, Jacob Sprenger, was born around 1437 in Basel. Yeah. What a shit year for everybody. And, like Kramer, became a member of the Dominican Order and Inquisitor in the Rhineland in 1470. He had a brief cooperation with Kramer and he contributed to the Malleus, but Kramer was he was the head bitch in charge there. And we're all worse for it.
Yeah, and we all hate him for it.
So Kramer was a notorious misogynist. Anybody who's even glanced at the Malleus Maleficarum would know that. It was so bad that he had a trial at Innsbruck that was suspended by the Bishop of Brixen, George Golser, in 1485, and all of the women he arrested were set free because the bishop said that he was going too far and too obsessed with the women's sexual history. Like, when a bishop has been like, hey, calm the fuck down.
That's when you know you fucked up. Because they're the most concerned.
That's like the boss priest. Why, my God. Unfortunately, that was the incident that spurred him on to writing the Malleus.
He said, you know what? I'll show you.
Yeah. And the whole thing reads, like, because I have read most of it. A lot of it's very hard to get through because you're just
you
like...
have?
Yeah, like we have a copy of it on our resources.
I'll have to look at it because, I've seen excerpts from it, but I've never actually read it.
No, a lot of it's just like...
Because it'll make me infuriated.
Yeah, it will make you mad. It's the ramblings of a madman. Like, it's just... I can't believe so many people took this on board. And it's just... he's just like obsessed with women.
We have our own modern day bullshit like that.
Yeah, he's the original incel. Like, he's... Heinrich Kramer, Andrew Tate, same thing. Even though Andrew Tate isn't an incel, somehow he still like coerces women into sleeping with him.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah, was this guy married?
Kramer? I don't believe so.
Right.
I didn't see any mention of his mother either. I don't know why he hates women so much.
Yeah. He also could have been gay and just like was mad about it.
Yeah, because he's like, they get to sleep with men and I want to sleep with men.
Yeah.
And it's fine. Heinrich, you can sleep with men if you want. Just don't tell anybody.
Back then, you can tell people now. Well, most people.
Yeah, tell people now. Yeah. If you're gay, please tell people. But
Trusting
only if you want
people.
to. We're not trying to out anybody.
Yeah.
Tell a trusted friend or adult.
Peer
We're
support.
assuming that, like, teenagers are listening to this. I don't think they are.
Good question.
So what the Malleus actually did was it ratified and formalized all of the beliefs around witches. It listed means for their discovery, guidelines for their trial and execution. And it was after it was published that the witch persecutions in continental Europe entered their peak phase, and it lasted all the way up until the 18th century. Even though the Malleus was first printed in 1487, it went through at least 13 editions by 1520 and was revived in 16 more editions between 1574 and 1669. Why do they hate women so much? Imagine being so scared of somebody making like a little poultice because somebody had a burn. You know?
Right. It's like, oh my God, she made a soup with delicious herbs. Kill her.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if this has been verified, but I've heard it said that the information around midwifery and women's health has never recovered from what was lost during the witch trials.
Yeah.
Because so many of these women that like literally had knowledge passed down to them and passed down to them while it was safe to learn. Because obviously you weren't going to pass it on to your daughter if you thought she was going to get like hung or burned at the stake.
Right. Well, even
it just died with them.
even when I was about to give birth, I was reading. It's so weird how hospitals are beneficial. I don't even know if I even talked much about like giving birth on here, but after I gave birth, I lost a lot of blood and I needed a blood transfusion. And, so if you give birth at home, you can't get an emergency blood transfusion. And I think that that's super important to be able to have those resources, or like your baby gets rushed to the newborn ICU or the NICU. And it's weird because it's important to have those emergency things in place. But also when you give birth in a hospital, like you kind of get treated like garbage, especially when it's your first time.
Yeah.
And I was doing so much reading and stuff beforehand about home births and birthing centers and all the differences between them. And the hospital, they very much push you to make decisions that you maybe don't feel prepared to make, you don't want to make, stuff like that. And that was really hard. And of course people are biased when they write like blogs and books and stuff about hospitals and how hospitals aren't the nicest to women who are giving birth, or people who are giving birth. Yeah, or in general. But the way that
that's triple fold if you're a woman of color or a person of color as well, just to acknowledge.
Right. And the way that they're just kind of like, it still is kind of like brutal and like misogynistic towards women. Yeah. Just because it always has been, and nobody's really stepped in to be like this. A lot of this stuff needs to change.
It come out that they were only testing period products on actual blood from like 2021. Like
I think it was this last year. I think it was 2023 where they started actually using blood.
Like, are you kidding me?
They're like, this tomato sauce is the same.
Everybody use a cup anyway, please. Anyway,
if you can. I've heard that they're bad for people with endometriosis.
Yeah, so they can
research. Do your research.
You can also doctor, like supplement them. Like, if they don't suit you, maybe at the start, you can use them later on in your cycle. Just saying, that's also an option. This is definitely the period episode, huh?
I keep coming back to periods and hormones, but I feel like it all ties together. It's all related because it's all like women's health care, and these people didn't give a shit about women's health. Kramer, jackass.
Yes, Kramer.
He was probably the original. Ew, blood.
Yeah, fucking child. I love this quote. Malleus is described as functioning, quote, more as a sexual fantasy than a philosophy, and a paranoid fantasy at that.
Yikes.
Yeah. Like, clearly he was into this. He just wanted to see, like, women suffer.
Oh, like he got off on it?
Yeah.
Yuck.
He got off on the power, having the power.
Yeah.
The Malleus is split into 3 parts. Part 1 presents a theoretical and theological arguments for the reality of witchcraft. So, as we were saying before, the Catholics didn't believe it was true, or didn't believe it was an actual thing. So this is presenting that, yes, it's real. I swear to God, I definitely lost my dick. We'll get into that later. Part 2 describes in detail both the works of witchcraft and remedies and protections against it. And then part 3 is the most damning. It's the recommended judicial proceedings against witches. So just like a couple of examples. I don't want to like basically read out the Malleus. I could do an entire like 90-minute episode on going through it.
Sign up for Patreon. I'm just kidding.
Hey, I'll do it. If you guys want to pay us money, I'll do it.
Niamh reads the Malleus Maleficarum.
And just calls Heinrich Kramer a man-child the whole time.
At the end of each page, man-child.
So one of the big takeaways is all witchcraft comes from carnal lust, which is just inherently a part of being a woman. I mean, yeah, but no. They're not any more lustful than men. It's just part of being human nature, unless you're asexual, which is fine.
I was going to say, and men don't feel carnal lust. I feel like
maybe
both
definitely
sexes feel that, but one of them definitely acts worse on it.
One of them definitely statistically exhibits less self-control.
Statistically speaking.
But that's also a power thing, which we could also get into.
Yeah.
Maybe
Kramer.
you should look in the mirror, Kramer.
Did they have mirrors back then, Kramer?
Probably one of those like old bendy ones.
And now I don't know. He had to go look at go to the pond.
I need to go to the looking pool.
To go look at
the
himself.
reflection pool at the town well. I assume he had a German accent, but I'm not doing
that. He's British for the sake of this episode.
He would be British in every retelling.
Right? What were we talking? Oh, something that bothers me is like when I was a kid, Moulin Rouge was like one of my favorite movies. And it's in France, but everybody has a British accent.
It's... Have you ever seen the Colin Farrell film Alexander, about Alexander the Great?
No.
So Colin Farrell plays Alexander, and it's, I'm pretty sure, directed by Neil Jordan, who is an Irish director. Yeah, so he's an Irish director, Neil Jordan. They made the conscious decision to have all of the characters, and it's set in like ancient Greece, to have them all have Irish accents. And it is absolutely awful. Even Colin Farrell says it's awful.
Oh my God.
Like it's like there's at one point where like they're having school, like even I remember when it came out, like even in Ireland, like there was radio DJs going, "What the fuck is this?" Because they were like, excuse me, Socrates. And you're like, no, like that just doesn't sound right. We're so conditioned that everybody has a posh English accent in the past. That's the way it works. Unless they're a peasant. So another big part of being a witch is it always involves a pact with the devil, but in some instances, Satan is not present for fear of scaring a novice away from making a covenant. But at others, he appears in bodily form, often as a very handsome man, as an extra persuasion for sinful women. Oh, he's sexy.
Those carnal, lustful women.
Because they're like, ooh, he's built. He has some scruff. They're like, I'm going to sign up for this.
He's got tattoo sleeves. No, I'm trying to describe those guys that are on Instagram who always like make videos of themselves thinking
the thirst trap guys. Well, like some of them are really hot, and then some of them are, you know, it's just like all the comments are like, "This has divorced dad energy," like those ones.
But do you ever see one where you're like, wow, he's attractive, and then by the end of the video, you still think he's attractive?
Yeah.
I feel like just the fact they make the video is unattractive.
There's this one guy, I'll show him to you, like he is so cute, and he always has like amazing music on his soundtrack. He doesn't speak, and all he does is shows his outfit, and he dresses really well, and I'm like, yes, a silent man who looks good. I like him. I'll see if I can find him.
As men
I think
should
he's
be.
English.
Silent. No.
Yes. Men should be seen and not heard. Isn't that the way it goes?
You write the ballet spell for Kara, but against men.
And all it is that they have to be well groomed and wash their asses. We will have public trials for anyone who does not wash their ass.
Please, for the love of God, just wipe your butthole.
Use a bidet. My God. You can get them on Amazon now.
And this is where we would insert, like, what is it, Tushy? A Tushy sponsor code.
Tushy, if you would like to sponsor us.
We have one. They could sponsor us.
The witches were also, he spent a lot of time on this. The witches were able to steal penises. He said it's technically an illusion that she steals the penis, but the victim...
Can you imagine them walking into like a modern day sex shop?
Yeah. Just absolutely like freaking out.
Horrified at all the stolen penises in different colors.
In one story, the witch who stole the penises could keep them alive in birds' nests. I know. That's what I'm saying. This is unhinged. Unhinged. When one victim who had lost his penis went to get one, he wanted to pick a larger one for himself, because of course he fucking did. So was it like a little shop or something? And she said no, because that one belonged to the parish priest.
What? Oh my God.
Who comes up? Was he on shrooms?
Yeah, seriously. What did he eat?
I know. Have you watched Big Mouth, the animated series?
We watched, I think, the first 2 seasons, and then it got weird when they started showing the little characters naked.
But
it's like, they're cartoons, but they're supposed to be children.
But you know all the hormone monster and all his little penises? That's what I'm picturing here.
I was just picturing a mama bird trying to like go to its nest. And you know how the little baby bird's like, beep, beep. Oh my God.
So yeah, and also interestingly, a big thing that we would sort of associate with witches is the devil's mark and having a familiar, and the devil's mark as a way of the witch feeding her familiar. That's something that we would have, apparently.
Right, it was supposed to be like a third nipple sort of situation.
Exactly. So that's actually not mentioned in the Malleus. That came later. There was a whole bunch of these stupid men making up this shit.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's like, God forbid she has a fucking pet cat.
They also don't mention the feasting on the Sabbath, as we throwback mentioned in our Witches' Brooms Pine Cones episode. That is not part of the Malleus either. That also came later. So the inverted, it was another way to cause outrage. So there's the Sabbath in Christianity and also other religions. So the witches meeting up and doing their like naked dances or whatever was definitely a way of truly offending God and offending the church. Yeah, wasn't in the Malleus, came later.
It's so nice that they just keep adding things to it.
I would imagine it's as like women do these things. You're just like, they're dancing naked. That must be witchcraft. It's like, no,
Are they experiencing joy without men?
I mean, they're probably all like brewed their own beer at home, because also, fun fact, women were the original beer brewers, and it was taken over by men, the stupid brewing industry.
And their beards.
Yeah, and their lumberjack shirts. Mm-hmm.
Shut up.
Shut up. Nobody cares about your IPA. Although I do like a good IPA.
Shut up, Chad.
Once officially recognised, the crime of witchcraft presented serious problems for the systems of control through which it was to be hunted down and suppressed. The fact that no one had ever been seen making a pact with the devil made the ordinary sources of evidence gathering rather worthless. So normally people would be interrogated at a court, but nobody could admit that they had seen the devil, because if you saw the devil, you were probably a witch. So that's a bit of a spanner in your works.
Wow.
So the quote here is, ordinary people were in theory unable to see the devil at all. As an eminent jurist, Sinistari phrased the problem. There can be no witness of that crime, since the devil, visible to the witch, escapes the sight of all beside. So I'm going to get a little bit legally here. I did promise Emily that I was...
yeah.
But it's just something, it's just quite interesting from like a criminological perspective. I'm not going to go too far into it, but first of all, you just need to understand a little bit about the court system at this time. There is an inquisitorial system or an accusatorial system. So the inquisitorial system is a legal system where the court takes on the active role of investigating the case, whereas the accusatorial system is a legal system where the prosecution and defense present their respective cases, and then the court is an impartial judge. So that's the one that we're probably most familiar with. Ordinary continental criminal procedure was more like the inquisitorial process, in which accusation, detection, prosecution, and judgment were all in the hands of the official control system rather than in those of private persons. And all of these functions reside basically in one individual, who was the judge or the magistrate. A witch trial was not an accusatorial or confrontative combat between the accuser and the accused, but an attack by the judge and his staff, or the establishment, upon the suspect, who carried on them a heavy presumption of guilt. So it was literally all of these powerful people against whoever was being accused. The accused person, rather than having the presumption of innocence like we would all be used to, and it's supposed to be a more fair system. You have the might of the state against the individual. So the presumption of innocence stands because it's much easier to maintain your innocence than it is to prove guilt. So it's more difficult. That's why there's more resources available, or there should be more resources available to the state, because they're the ones that have the harder job of proving somebody's guilt. Yeah. But in witch trials, you had they weren't always a poor person, but it was almost always somebody who was a little bit of an outcast, or maybe at least by way of being accused, they were isolated. Like once that accusation was on you, a lot of people would not have wanted anything to do with you. They have to literally prove their innocence. They have to prove that the accusation of guilt is wrong, which it just shows how unfair the whole thing is. You're just presumed a witch unless you can prove otherwise. And how the fuck do you prove otherwise? Often it was by dying.
Right. Yeah, like when they would drown them and stuff like that. It's like, whoops.
Yeah, it's like, oh, well.
We killed the non-witch.
Yeah, she has an honourable death because we know for sure now that she wasn't a witch.
So sad.
So yeah, that was the powers that be versus the marginalized. One of the powers that be, which was the ultimate power that be, is that the way you can say it? Power that be, was King James the First. King James the First ruled both Scotland and England, and he played a significant role in the witch trials during the late 16th and early 17th century. In 1591, an alarming confession came from an accused witch named Agnes Sampson. She revealed that 200 witches, including some from Denmark, had sailed in sieves. Sieves as in, like, the thing that you use to drain your pasta sometimes, or, like, put flour into your cookies. And I read that and I was like, was sieve also an old name for a boat or something? No. According to folklore, witches were able to sail in a sieve, as in the strainer with holes in the bottom.
You said sail.
Sail.
I thought you were saying seal.
Oh, sail.
It's like seal in a sieve.
Sail.
S-A-I-L.
Yeah, thanks for translating.
Okay.
For the listeners, because I'm sure other people thought I said seal as well. Seal, sail.
I was like, seal in a sieve, like seal the holes in the sieve.
Yeah. So yeah, this Agnes lady said that 200 witches had sailed in sieves to the church of the coastal town of North Berwick on Halloween night in 1590. This really affected King James because it led him to believe that he and his Danish bride Anne were personally targeted by witches who conjured dangerous storms during their voyages across the North Sea. So basically he had ventured here to pick up his probably child bride, I'm assuming.
Yeah, she was probably like 13 and he was 40.
Yeah. And take her back. So he believed that these witches had conjured the storms to affect them. And then as a result, it was King James who sanctioned the witch trials. And the fear of witchcraft stirred up those national panics that we know about in England and Scotland. First of all, I just want to give a quick shout out to Edinburgh University. They have an entire website dedicated to witchcraft in Scotland. It is amazing. Wow. They basically like went through old records and compiled it, and they're able to like, you know, say this person was persecuted for witchcraft on this date, and you can literally search a database if you think one of your ancestors was tried for witchcraft in Scotland. So yeah, if anybody thinks that they might have a connection there, go on their website. It'll be linked in the show notes. So
that would be so insane to find that
wouldn't
out.
It? I would be so proud. Like, it's tragic, but I'd be like, yeah, obviously she was a bad bitch.
And if anybody happens to research this and they find this, please write to us. We want to hear about it.
Tell us who your amazing ancestor was. It's cool if it's a man too, because there were men. But yeah, tell us.
Yeah.
So Edinburgh University have identified a total number of 3,837 people who were accused of witchcraft in Scotland. 3,212 of these are named, and there are a further 625 unnamed people or groups included in their database. For sure, they know that 205 of the accused witches were to be executed. 52 were acquitted. 27 were banished. 11 were declared fugitive, which I fucking love. They're like, nah, fuck this. Let's go to fucking Norway or something. I don't care. One person was to be kept in prison, and one person was to be publicly humiliated. Yeah. In addition, a further 98 people were recorded as having fled from prosecution. So, like, they made it as far as the court, but they just fled the prosecution. And that suggests that 67% or 2/3 are executed. Of those people, 84% were women and 15% are men. And the sex was unknown for 1%. Because, of course.
Wow.
They also had a breakdown of their age group. It was mostly women between 40 and 60, I believe. I didn't write that down. I didn't write all of the age groups down because I figured I was giving you guys enough numbers right now. So who were these people? We know that 9 individuals' occupation was recorded as midwife. And for 10 other people, they practiced midwifery. And that was part of the accusation. So they might have just been like a woman who had had a lot of children and, you know, had been present at births. That's actually a tiny percentage of the overall total. But the most common one was folk healing. And it was featured in witchcraft accusations of 141 people, which is about 4%.
Wow.
My God.
It's like, so you don't want somebody who can help you with your tummy aches?
It's like, sorry, do you want to live with like psoriasis on your scalp? That's fine. I hope you get a lot of psoriasis, you dick. Of course, these people were tortured. The most common form of torture was actually sleep deprivation, which that would fucking get me. Oh my God.
I was reading the other day, yesterday actually, about like a subreddit about parenthood and about like the sleep deprivation that you experience in the beginning. And people were saying there's a reason it's illegal to torture people with sleep deprivation. Because it is so awful and it is so damaging. And like just a bunch of parents saying like, don't be hard on yourself. Like this is really, really, really hard. Like really hard. Yeah. There was somebody who had a comment or a reply or whatever it's called on Reddit. And they said that they struggled with insomnia their whole life. And they're like, and I thought that lack of sleep was bad. But then I had a baby and it was so much worse. And they were like, I didn't even think, they were like, oh, I thought I was prepared for this, but it's way worse than they even thought.
That's why you're supposed to have a village. You know, there's supposed to be somebody helping you.
And that's why I, like when my daughter was like brand new and people were like, oh, I'm tired. I was like, oh, you're tired?
You became one of those
Do
parents.
Do you know what tired is?
What's interesting, though, is just after what you're saying, before 1662, so that's well into the witch trials, sleep deprivation actually wasn't considered as an official torture. It was all the other like pain-inflicting ones. The sleep deprivation was usually done by local authorities, burg bailies, which I assume is a bailiff, like an officer of the court, or elders of the Kirk session, in order to get the evidence that they needed before they went on to the Privy Council to obtain commission to hold a criminal trial. Occasionally there were physical tortures. In the North Berwick witchcraft trial of 1590, the witches were accused of treason against King James himself. There was physical torture. I could not find what it was. Physical torture included in that. And then just some stats on their social status of the individuals who were tried that the university was able to research into. The majority fell into the middle range of people, so it wasn't the very poor or it wasn't the elite. The total of those who came from lower socioeconomic categories, like very poor or non-landowners, was 29%. And the upper lairds or lords and nobility were just 6%, because of course. Yeah. So that's just for like...
It's kind of like today.
Yeah, kind of. Isn't that funny? And they...
Crazy how they just like could pay off the courts.
Yeah. So that was Scotland. Actually, I'll do it.
Can you give us your best Scottish accent?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I feel like I used to be a lot better at accents, but I have lost the ability over the years.
I wanted you to be like, and that was Scotland in a Scottish accent.
And that was Scotland.
It sounds like how you normally sound.
Also under King James's reign was Matthew Hopkins, who was known as the Witchfinder General in England. His career thrived during the English Civil War, which, how many wars have you guys had? I can't keep track. Just stop going to war.
Just quit it.
He operated primarily in East Anglia, and he bestowed himself the title of Witchfinder General. It was never given to him by Parliament.
So you know he's a real great guy.
Yeah, like, do you know what happens when people give themselves a nickname? They're douchebags.
Like that, especially?
Yeah. Witchfinder General. He was the son of a Puritan clergyman. His career as a witch hunter kicked off when he overheard women discussing their meetings with the devil in March 1644 in Manningtree. Which, what the fuck are you eavesdropping for, Matthew?
Mind your own damn business.
Yeah. He and his colleague John Stearns sent more accused people to be hanged for witchcraft than all of the other witch hunters in England over the previous 160 years. And their activities
something to be proud
were
of.
responsible for the increase in witch trials. And the sort of little like shitty note that was in this book that I got this from is, although he presented evidence in trials like a trained lawyer, there is no evidence to confirm he had any legal training. Also a huge, I can't go into every single trial in England, but probably another one that people might have heard of is the Pendle witch trials of 1612. They're the most famous and well documented witch trials in English history, and they centred around the area surrounding Pendle Hill in Lancashire. There were 12 accused individuals charged with the murders of 10 people through the use of witchcraft. The accused included 9 women and 2 men. 6 of them came from 2 families, the Device family, headed by the matriarch Demdike, hope I'm saying that right, and the Redfern family, headed by the matriarch Chattox. Other accused individuals were Jane Pulcock, Alice Nutter, Catherine Hewitt, Alice Gray, and Janet Preston. Do we notice anything about that? Do we notice the lack of penises? Of the accused, 1 died while they were held in custody, and 11 went to trial. 1 person was tried and found guilty at York. The other 10 were tried at Lancaster. Only 1 was found not guilty. And the reason we know so much about it, it was actually documented in an official publication. Demdike and Chattox were both known in the community as cunning women. They used their abilities mostly for telling fortunes and healing the sick, which, such a terrible fucking job that you do. Anyway.
Yeah. They're hurting a lot of people.
Yeah, but what was interesting is these 2 families had a bit of a feud because they did similar things, so they accused each other of a lot of things. Yeah, just, you're not helping. The events were set in motion when Demdike's teenage granddaughter Alison with a Z, I like that. Alison, yeah, encountered a peddler named John Law in the woods. After a confrontation, she whispered a curse and Law collapsed. That's nice. I would love to be able to do that.
Wait, she whispered a curse and what collapsed?
John Law, the man, collapsed.
Oh.
The 10 who were found guilty and executed were done so by hanging. So no stake burning here. Yeah. Yay. So that's the Pendle Witch Trials, one of very many in English history. Next we go to Ireland. I know I said that we didn't really have any witch trials. There were definitely 2. What I forgot to mention, I realised when I was editing last week, that Biddy Early, the wise woman in our Celtic episode at the end, was actually put on trial for witchcraft, but she was let off because nobody would testify against her. Which that probably means she was a real witch, because she must have been powerful as fuck.
I was gonna say, she must have been very scary.
So Ireland's first convicted witch was way back in 1324. She was a wealthy woman from Kilkenny. She was accused of using potions and sorcery to harm her husbands. That's plural. She escaped trial by fleeing the country, but sadly her servant Petronella de Meath was burned at the stake in her place. Which, fuck you, Alice. You left your servant to take the rap for you?
Yeah, for real.
Yep.
So rude.
The Witch of Youghal. That's why. That's not Y apostrophe ALL. It's a place in Cork. I knew by Emily's face. She was like, y'all.
The Witch of
Youghal. It's Youghal, so it's at the very southern part of Ireland. Also known as Florence Newton. She lived during the 17th century. She was described as an old beggar woman in the town of Youghal, County Cork. She was arrested and imprisoned in 1661. She was tried for 2 offences under the Witchcraft Act of 1586, which I mentioned in our Celtic Witches episode. Her alleged crimes included bewitching Mary Langdon and causing the death of David Jones through sorcery. It was so serious, the Attorney General for Ireland travelled from Dublin to Cork to prosecute her, which in those days would have taken him a while. Florence was accused of mumbling curses after being denied a piece of beef and then, quote, violently kissing Mary Langdon, who subsequently fell ill and experienced fits and visions.
That's spicy.
Which I'm like, did Florence just have some sort of disease? Is that all that was?
Did she have syphilis?
And also the David Jones, who she was accused of causing his death, was actually her jailer. So if you're going to kill anyone, the guy that's locking you up.
Did he also die of syphilis?
Must have. And recent research indicates that Florence actually died before the trial could be concluded. Or did she?
She's still here with us today.
Mm-hmm. The last witch trials in Ireland were the Island McGee witch trials from 1711. The events unfolded in and around No Head House in the townland of Kilcoen or on Island McGee, which is a peninsula in southeast County Antrim. And it's populated mostly by Presbyterian people, so like the Ulster Scots that people might remember from our Appalachia episodes. The trial was triggered by Mr. James Haltridge, who claimed that 18-year-old Mary Dunbar exhibited signs of demonic possession, which meant she probably like walked weird or something.
She probably cried.
Yeah. Well, he said her symptoms included shouting, swearing, blaspheming, throwing Bibles, fits in the presence of clergymen, and vomiting household items like pins, buttons, nails, glass, and wool. Which, girls, same.
Is that not how you cry?
Assisted by local authorities, Mary was not a girl's girl. She identified 8 women she believed were witches who had attacked her in spectral form.
All right.
Yeah. So 2 judges presided over the trial, and the judges actually had contrasting views. They disagreed with each other. Judge Upton emphasised the blameless lives of the accused and their exemplary attendance at Christian worship, urging the jury to acquit. And Judge McCartney took a more credulous view and successfully persuaded the jury to convict. So they believed him. Unfortunately, no official records of the verdicts exist because they think that any of the records were destroyed during the Irish Civil War of 1922. Okay, so that is Ireland. One thing I will say is the Island McGee witch trials reminded me a lot of the Salem witch trials, which I'm not going to go into on this episode because I felt like they're so well covered. People, if you know anything about witch trials, you know about the Salem witch trials. And who knows, we might do an extra episode or a Pinecones episode or something on them. If there's an appetite for that, if anybody wants it. But just...
Who wants it?
Who wants it? Let us know. I just want to give one quick honourable mention to Germany because they fucking love their witch trials. Examples of German witch trials are the Würzburg witch trials occurring between 1625 and 1631. It was actually one of the most significant mass trials and executions related to witchcraft in Europe during the 30 Years' War. The trials involved a large number of people of all ages, sexes, and social classes. In the city of Würzburg alone, 157 women, children, and men were confirmed to have been executed, while an estimated 900 individuals were executed or died in custody within the entire prince-bishopric. So that's Würzburg. That's what it was. It was a prince-bishopric. Wow. I would like to be a prince-bishop. I feel like you'd get amazing gold jewellery. Just blinged out 24/7. The accused were subjected to brutal punishments. Some were burned at the stake, while others were beheaded before being burned. The thing you just have to remember is these executions were all completely lawful and carried out as part of the witch trials. One of the theories for why this was such a huge deal and there was like 900 people involved is Würzburg was situated in an area on the religious border between Catholic and Protestant territories. The Catholic Prince-Bishop, intent on promoting the Counter-Reformation, played a significant role in conducting these trials.
So they were just trying to like convert people?
Like, I think it's to do with the zealotry. Like, the Protestants were so hell-bent on this, like, witchcraft is terrible and witchcraft is like punishable by death because we love God so much. So then the Catholics were like, well, hey, no, wait, we love God too. We're going to kill some women. Like, you can't do it all yourselves.
Come on. You guys can't just do it all by yourself.
Thankfully, prosecutions and executions for the crime of witchcraft declined and eventually came to an end during the 17th and 18th centuries. The decline occurred in all European countries where witch hunts had taken place and in the colonies of Spain, Portugal and England where ecclesiastical or temporal authorities had brought witches to trial. The decline was marked by an increasing reluctance to prosecute witches, the acquittal of many who were tried, the reversal of convictions on appeal, and eventually the repeal of the laws that had authorized the prosecutions. And that, dear listeners, is my episode on witch trials.
It was a good episode. Sad, but
sad,
good.
yeah. Part of me wanted to go into more like the nitty gritty of like the torture methods and stuff, but I think it was sad enough.
Yeah.
But there was some interesting things came up about like methods of controlling women and different things that were invented, which I thought was just like I hadn't come across it before. Like there was the scold's bridle, which was a device which was fitted over a woman's head who was accused of, it could be witchcraft, she could be just accused of gossiping or talking too much.
Did you send that to me? Okay, I was like, I just saw this somewhere.
Yeah, so it would be placed over a woman's head so she couldn't gossip, she couldn't talk. There was actually an instance of it.
It's like a muzzle.
Pretty much like a muzzle, but like it went all over her head. And some of them had like spikes on the part that went into your mouth, which sounds absolutely horrific.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And that could have been one of the punishments. One of the reasons I saw for somebody being sentenced to the scold's bridle was that she was a Puritan and she was going through the village trying to tell people the truth. So everyone's like, just muzzle her. There was also, I think, when I was looking into the public humiliation punishment, I think one of the options for that was there was this device, and the name is just escaping me, but it was basically like a commode. Why do we keep mentioning commodes on this?
The commode just keeps coming
up. So like with the hole where your genitals are, and she would have had to sit on it with like no underwear on and would have been paraded around the town.
Oh my God, that's horrific.
There's always this underlying sexual thing, isn't there?
Right.
Which is just like, get the fuck over it. Like, go pay for like a sex worker.
Yeah, seriously.
Pay well.
Stop being so mad.
So,
anywho, should we wrap this one up?
With
a little bow.
Yeah, tied up with a bow. I hope you guys enjoyed the Witch Trials episode. It could have been longer, so you're welcome for me not droning on for that long. If there's any part of this that you would like to know more about, or you would like maybe a pine cones or some extra content on, please always let us know, because my Google search history is full of lots of witchy shit. Make sure you get in touch if you have any comments, questions, suggestions, compliments. Lots of compliments.
Lots of compliments.
You'll hear from us again in 2 weeks. Fuck yeah, folklore.
Fuck yeah, folklore. I'm
Emily.
Emily.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Bye.